Sorry for being a couple minutes late. I was looking for quotes in the first book, and I think 8 minutes went by. That was a surprise. So, welcome everybody to my channel. My name is Margaret Pennard, and I'm a historical fiction and fantasy writer. Here to, well, not really get shit done, but definitely to taste life twice. That's my publishing company name. And what are we doing today? Well, it's Wednesday, and I haven't done a wrap-up in at least 3 weeks because I've been traveling. So today we are going to wrap up some books that I read in March. And I called it Pitiful March reading, not because the books were terrible, but because I read so few. So I feel like I hardly got any time to read because of all of the driving and taxes and family time and definitely stuff that needed to be done, but not my usual routine. So I had to deal with all of that, and therefore I just snatched what reading I could, and you will see what sort of scraps fell into this pile. It's kind of hodgepodge. So let's see, did I have any announcements or other things? No. I'm going to tell you a little bit about current projects today, as well as the 6 or 7 reads that I had on the thumbnail and read in March. I was going to talk about the one that I started in March and finished in April, but I decided to leave that for April. So that is the plan for today. Now I can say welcome to the chat. Hello, Anita. Anita helped me decide on a birthday card yesterday when I was not able to think, so thank you. And Leslie is here. Happy Wednesday. And Jim is here up late. Say hey y'all with a British accent. I don't know how that would sound, but I like it. I like it. And new friend from LinkedIn. That's the first time I've ever had someone log on LinkedIn. So that's fabulous. Welcome. And Kat Rosales. Hello. Welcome everybody. So it's like a recovery day. We're getting back into the swing of things, and that's perfect for a wrap-up Wednesday. So my first, I already forgot. Let's do this. Ta-da! My first book I'm going to talk about today, and I'll bookmark these later, is Dorothy Murphy's Full Tilt. It doesn't have the subtitle on the spine, and it's covered up by the library thing on the front. So Ireland to India with a bicycle. So this is from the 1960s, and I read it as part of the Irish Readathon. Now, I think I had her on a list of Irish writers and also travel writers that I wanted to read. And so when I saw that, this would qualify for Irish Readathon, I thought, perfect. So I started it rather early. I think I started it on the first of the month because it's the first one I had in hand. And I struggled. With this book. So I do like travel writing, and the issue, I think, was especially the first half, 2/3 of this book, was her falling in love with Afghanistan and talking about places that I'm not in love with, like desert and just like landscapes she's describing that are the opposite of her homeland of Ireland, and she falls in love with. I mean, this is a nice picture. But she's also talking about problems with her bike and people she meets and interesting little political asides. Not too many of those. So it was a lot of how the weather was, how she felt, how she coped with bumps on the road, literally, and how the weather thwarted her, as well as how lovely people were. And she basically starts in the middle of Europe and immediately gets through Turkey to Afghanistan. So it sort of zoomed in and then spent all the time on Afghanistan, Iran. Now I'm saying it. It's so weird. She calls it Persia, so it's just sounding weird in my head. And then Pakistan, which is not yet Pakistan, or it is Pakistan. It's not yet split. So there's a West Pakistan and an East Pakistan here. And then India for a very short time. So it's interesting. And she is an indomitable personality. She's got dry humor. She's got some funny asides. Basically, it's all the letters she wrote home to her friends that got circulated around when she was traveling on a bicycle like a lunatic, a lone woman in the 1960s in this area of the world. So kudos to her. Much chutzpah, but it was hard for me to get into until sort of the end, and then she was comparing things to before and after, and then I was like, okay, well now I'm getting more of a sense of her personality. So it's like a 3.25 star read for me, but for someone else more in love with that area, it may be like a walloping 5-star. I don't know. I will give you a couple little extracts to give you a taste. That's why I was late. I was looking for stuff. I thought this is pretty funny. Page 65. Give me the nomad's outlook every time. They haven't heard of America yet. I don't claim to know the right answer to the underdeveloped problem, but I feel most strongly that the communist answer is less wrong than the Western. The communists have much more imaginative understanding of different national temperaments, as 2 Russians I spoke to here today revealed very clearly. They want to impose communism as a way of life, but with the minimum of damage to the traditional foundations of the country concerned, whereas Westerners have told me repeatedly that they want to bulldoze those foundations right away and start a nice, new, hygienic society from scratch. An ambition that seems to me almost too stupid to be true. Fair enough. Fair enough, Dervla. So that's the sort of like tongue-in-cheek tone that she's taking with her friends as she's writing home, which I liked. And then the second piece was about different points along the way she had to accept rides or train or what have you, because she couldn't make it through on her bicycle, whether it was because of too high snow or too hard winds or too high temperature or too much sand, which they put down for the camels. Whatever it was, she only very in extreme cases accepted that she couldn't make it. And at one point, she'd gone up to a pass that she wanted to see the view from and had this to say on page 143. One should win the privilege of looking down on such a scene. And because I had done nothing to earn a glimpse, scam likely. Okay. Because I had done nothing to earn a glimpse of these remote beauties, I felt that I was cheating and that this nasty, noisy little impertinence, mechanically transporting me, the bicycle, was an insult to the mountains. You will probably accuse me of a tiresome outburst of romanticism, but I'm not sure you'll be right. The more I see of unmechanized places and people, the more convinced I became that machines have done incalculable damage by unbalancing the relationship between man and nature. The mere fact that we think and talk as we do about nature is symptomatic. For us to refer to nature as a separate entity, something we admire or avoid, or study or paint. Avoid would be Chelsea, C.M. Lockhart. Shows how far we've removed ourselves from it. And that was one of those times where she had a lesson that I was like, zing, that I really jived with. So, very interesting person. And yeah, could be a great 5-star read for someone else. Let's just hop over to here if you're new here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yes, dreaded taxes. Meow. And Pop Prince. We're just saying hello to each other. Awesome. Okay, so the second book, after not getting through Full Tilt, bringing it with me on the trip, and not reading anything for like a week and a half, I went to a used bookstore and got some books, of course. And I was so desperate, I was like, well, at least I know I can read Sherilyn Kenyon. So she's a paranormal romance writer, and her thing, I think most of her books, at least the series that I have read the most of, takes inspiration from gods and goddesses from ancient civilizations like Greek and Roman, but also Norse, and in this case, Sumerian. So I got to know a little bit more about Sumerian gods and goddesses, a little bit, very little bit, because it's mostly like a sort of time travel and supernatural romance, steamy variety. And this one is called Devil May Cry, and it's probably like the 5th or 6th Sherilyn Kenyon I've read. It was very entertaining. There are definitely older things, dated things. Its publication date is 2007. So not older dated in terms of like language or social attitudes, but well, a little bit. Just like the formula. I mean, I like parts of it, and some are better than others. But it's a very reliable formula. So like I have come to depend on Sherilyn Kenyon when I'm desperate to read something and check out. And this was great. So it's one of these, like, the ancient prophecy says the world is going to end if these devils are unleashed unless someone does something impossible, and he needs this woman's help. So it is what it is, and I'm sure we all have books like that we turn to just like escape, and that was definitely one of mine. So the next book, let's see if I'm going by the thumbnail. I don't think I am. Yes, okay. That's what I'll do. One more, and then I'll go to the overlays. So I did talk about this one a little bit in the book haul. This very pretty scripty cover says Mr. Atkinson's Rum Contract by Richard Atkinson. You may be wondering, why is it about himself? No, this is actually someone who is a book publisher, I think notably cookbooks in Britain, and he chose to look into his family history. He is mostly interested in the end of the 18th century and what his family did at that time, because he has one illustrious ancestor who is named in the title, who got into the bowels of government, and I mean administrative government, as a contractor in London rather than as a politician in either of the houses, and got very rich, and had plantations in Jamaica, where, of course, one owned slaves at that time in the British Empire. And so this is about his uncovering of his family history, his sort of processing of what his family did and how they contributed to slavery and the injustice against people in that time period, how they have profited from that, and sort of acknowledging it. And I really liked that part where it's him exploring the roots and his motivations and his memories of family, and then his grappling with what that means for today and how he interacts with certain people he meets today, which is very interesting. He does go a lot into the end of the 18th century, which for me, since I was using this as sort of a background research book as well as personal interest, was a little early. So it was very detailed about the political movements, the contracts, the money flowing, the tittle-tattle coming out of Parliament, the disgraces, the scandals, all these sorts of things, the military movements, which I wasn't as interested in. But then he picks back up and turns into, like, when this ancestor passes away, it goes to this, and then this woman, and then that house, and you sort of connect it back to where he talks about the family seat and his journey and everything. It's particularly interesting because I just saw on Pod Save the UK a few weeks ago now an interview with a British journalist who's from a wealthy family, and she had publicly mentioned wanting to pay reparations to either the people her family had interacted with as property. I don't know how to say that, but she had an interview on Pod Save the UK, and she had a much more sort of public layout of this processing on the BBC, and I just thought that was really courageous for someone to come out and sort of open themselves up to all that criticism. I think it worked out well. I think, I really respect her for that, and I think she and another group in, whether it's Jamaica or a different Caribbean island, I can't remember now because the interview is before all the travels and all that stuff flew out of my head. But that's a similar sort of engagement with the past in a very reflective and thoughtful way, and wanting to have positive impact after gaining so much as a family from all that negative actions. Yeah. I really liked this one. Would recommend it if you like someone sort of diving into their path. If you watch Finding My Roots, if you like those kinds of programs. It is rather long, but I did get through it very quickly because I was interested, and he's a compelling writer, as I said, except for that like 18th century, very detailed part. He's got pictures in here and, angle file. So definitely up my alley. So that's 3. We're going to take a little pause for current project and coming events so that I can remember to tell you before I forget. Oh my gosh, Melissa's here. I haven't seen Melissa in forever. Hello. And Shannon is here. I saw Shannon this morning in her chat. Thank you, Shannon. Just got back from the bus stop. Nice. So what I was going to say is that I have 3 fun current things. One of them is, I'm a little late on this because usually I'm done by the 3rd of the month, but I still haven't written any of my Patreon postcards. So I'm still deciding who gets which one. And they've been sitting here, but I've had like all this stuff going on, including allergies, including a dryer repairman, including, anyway, lots of stuff left over from the trip. And so I look forward to that every month. I do it the first 3 days or so and send out my postcards. So if you're curious, definitely check it out. The other thing that I am not working on, but I'm hoping to get back to, you remember this pretty orange notebook. I love the Rhodia paper. So I busted it out to motivate me. And I'm going through, this is like part of my editing process, to find the structure and list scene by scene the chapters I've gone through. I'm still stuck here. But we have first Friday productivity sprints. So guess who's going to bring this orange notebook to this Friday's productivity stream? And I'll drop that in comments if you're curious and you want to like get a notification for that one specifically. First Friday productivity. There we go. That was the second current project that will be needed on Friday. And then the last one I had to be very careful with is the main reason. I mean, I had a doctor's appointment too, but like the main reason I had to come back to Portland by this time was because I had a library pickup. That was an interlibrary loan. And if you know what that is, it means someone from far away said, okay, we'll loan our library book to your library system. And it's just more complicated to get it to you and you can't renew. So I definitely wanted to get it out and read it. This is one of the people that I wanted to explore on my travels. This is his book. It's called My Life and Writings by Sir Archibald Allison Baronet, edited by Lady Allison, his daughter-in-law, and it's from 1883. So they sent this through the mail. I just love like the old book look. Like if I could make my books like this, look like this on the spine, wouldn't that be cool? So I just started it yesterday and it's going by pretty fast. He's got a pretty even, rational tone. It's not like snooty or anything. He is known and listed in Wikipedia as a bibliophile. Like, yes, he was a lawyer and did other stuff, but like noted bibliophile. So I definitely had to explore him, and definitely a character who is a bookseller, not a book collector, but a bookseller, because that's also another person in history that I found is going to go in my current manuscript. So that's like the current excitement. And I think we can go back to the books. Yes. Okay. So I've gotten Irish Readathon and Desperate Historical Romance and Historical Research. So what's left is overlays. Let's go find those. Oh, did I not upload them? I did not upload them. Okay. Give me 2 Shakes of a Lamb's Tail. There we go. Because I did make them. I just didn't upload them. All right. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a holdover from the Black Author Tuber Readathon. And I read this as a buddy read with Leslie, who's in the chat. And that is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. And this was the horror. We both, I think, no, Leslie got it early and read it early. And then I tried to keep up, but because the CD format that I got from the library was like missing a CD, and then I wasn't driving and it was not optimal. I finished it rather late. And so we went into March, and it was definitely worth it. It's a fantastic horror story in sort of a gothic way. If you really wanted to stretch it, you could call it a dark academia, because the place that they're in is called a school, but like it's not an institutionalized incarceration type environment. Like a reform school used to be used as a euphemism. Or no, reform schools. Well, I don't know actually. I don't know. But the Reformatory is a story by Tananarive Due that takes the name of one of her ancestors. I think it's her grandmother's brother, who died early, and gives it to this character who is caught up in a very unfortunate Jim Crow segregated South situation. So because his father is a political organizer, and because he and his sister are on their own, they're basically vulnerable. And so when this one small incident happens at the beginning, the boy is taken to the Reformatory. And this is in upstate Florida, if that's what you call it, northern Florida, that is very southern rather than like beachy. And so you've got a lot of prejudice and a lot of injustice. And what you see in here, the horror part is really how the boys were treated in this institution, which is a very historical fact. And what Tananarive Due weaves in, which I think is part of her signature in the horror, is supernatural elements. I didn't know. So that was a surprise for me. So I really enjoyed this. If you want to hear more, you can listen to our Buddy Read chat, which I should have gotten a link to before this, but I forgot. So maybe Leslie can find it. But we had a double hour long chat about 2 books that we read. And we really both liked this one. And we thought there were maybe some places where it slowed down the action with the writing, but overall, like the characters and the setting and the tension, really, really good. So definitely would recommend Tananarive Due as another read in a future readathon, or whenever you want to mood read something gothic, horror, supernatural, scary, but like a good ending, I would say. So that's that. Let me see if Leslie found the link. Let me see if Leslie has a wrench. She does. Okay. Well, I will leave it. Maybe come back later if I don't see it pop up. Leslie says, Dark Academia is an apt assessment that didn't cross my mind. Yeah, because usually it's like wizards and stuff, and it's not like the victimizing of the people in the institutions. Leslie says, I appreciated the author including songs like Wade in the Water, as it tied slavery to Jim Crow and the school. Yeah. No, it's definitely historical fiction. This happens in the 1950s, and basically you're able to see. Is that a spoiler? I've said there's supernatural elements. I don't think it's a spoiler to say there are ghosts in the book, and through them you see like the history of violence in this reformatory school for young boys. And yeah, it was really powerful. The way that the author gives courage and fortitude to her characters that she wants to win, and like really makes you pull for them. And like the song is part of that, as well as the supporting characters in their lives. It's really good. It's dual POV, so you switch back and forth. It's pretty good. Jocelyn Carter, good afternoon. Yay! Thank you, Leslie. So this is our like double up review of those 2. Thank you. Melissa says, sadly, have yet to read any Tananarive Due. I love her name. I love saying her name. It's so fun. And Jocelyn says, I haven't read Dark Academia, but I've heard about it. Yeah, it was sort of a thing for the past few years. I said, like, if you were really stretching, this might qualify as that, but I think it's more like horror historical fiction. That's what I would call it. But, you know, if you're reaching for a sort of readathon book, squeeze this one in because it's a really powerful read. That would be my recommendation. The next book I have on overlay would be another Irish Readathon one. This is the Rachel Incident, which was the group read for the Irish Readathon. And I, as you can see, this is Square. I listened to it on Libro.fm, our favorite purveyor of audiobooks for indie. And this is by Carolyn O'Donoghue. I'm going to say O'Donoghue because when you say Donahue, it makes me think of Phil and the 90s and just like terrible soap opera chat show stuff. So we're leaving that behind. The Rachel Incident has LGBTQ representation. It has pregnancy. It has, infidelity. It has secrets. It has chronic illness representation. There's a lot of content warning type stuff in there. But I just like lay that out at the beginning so none of it sounds spoilery. There's just lots of stuff. It's very well done. I don't think any of it is put in to check a box or be salacious. Like, yeah, I thought it was really truthfully written. So the Rachel Incident, we don't find out what it is until near the end. And it's basically the growing up of a early 20s woman in Cork. I love that it was set in Cork because most of the Irish reads that I've read are set in Dublin. And I've been to Cork, and my relatives are from County Cork. And so it was nice to see that like rural representation a little bit more and hear about Irish, I don't know if you call them tropes, but like attitudes. So like people from Trinity versus the people who went to UCC and that sort of stuff. It's fun. It's also a few years ago. So the book came out only a year ago, but it's set in mostly 2010. Yes, mostly in 2010. And she's really capturing a moment in Irish history, recent history, that was a complete collapse. So in my American context, I would say it was 2008 that really felt the bubble burst, because that's what I remember I graduated from graduate school and like nothing was open. So for Ireland, I think it was 2010. And so there's a crash, there's no jobs, there's like hopelessness, sort of things rolling out from that, as well as her own sort of coming of age and maturity. It revolves around Rachel and her friend James. And then she has a love interest, and she has sort of things that get in the way of her job prospects and sort of switch back and forth and get interwoven. And yeah, so it's very complex and well plotted. I thought that was the most remarkable aspect about it. Yeah, I like the humor. She's got dry Irish humor. I like that throughout. There are a few choices in there that I just this morning went through the Irish Readathon Discord and was looking at other people's opinions about the ending. A few like disagreements. So there's definitely stuff to debate. So this would probably be a good like book club book or buddy read. Yeah, I like the way that it's framed as someone from 2023 when it was published, looking back 10 or so years and realizing what kind of place she was in. It really feels like the narrator of the story, since I was listening to it, and the narrator of the book has really done some work and can analyze it fruitfully for the reader rather than blasting off like, this is what I did and I was right, or disrespectfully tearing down their earlier, like it's a very sympathetic approach to their younger self, which was nice. It was nice. Yeah. So that was the Rachel Incident, and my little blurb in the description is, did I make all my prompts for the Irish Readathon? Because that was the only one I was really trying for. And Rachel Incident, if you look at Caroline, it has that word in green. So I use that for read a green book, because if you can see, I read a lot of green books, but for some reason, not this month. Black and yellow, blue and gold, and like blue and brown, white, red. There's no green. So that's what I had to do. for my green book. It's ridiculous, but there we are. And with that little sneaky aside, I did complete all the props, which is pretty cool. It's the first time I've done that for the Irish Readathon. Let's see. Yeah, Melissa says thumbs up for dry Irish humor. Yes. Full Tilt did that, and the Rachel incident was it as well. Oh, and she says that's one of the reasons I loved Did You Hear Mammy Died so much. I think I've heard you talk about it, but it's not on my list. So maybe I struck it as like something that didn't feel like would be high on my list. I don't know. Or maybe I'm getting it confused with I'm Happy My Mom Died, that Hollywood memoir, because it sounds very similar, but in Irish. Okay, so then my last overlay is going to be my most recent listen, which is the poetry pick. So I listened to this on March 31st. It's very short. It's only, I think, 2 hours maybe. So it's a poetry book, and therefore probably either a quick read or a slow read, depending on how you like to digest poetry. But poetry is the topic of the month for April. It's National Poetry Month. So if you're looking for recommendations, this came out, and I thought it was really good. I've never heard of or read Michael Claber Diggs, the author of this collection, but this actually won an award, and it was on Libro.fm on the list. So, Worldly Things. And now I'm going to try not to mix it up with the one I just listened to today, which was a short story. Yesterday. So these poems deal a lot with the ones I remember, the ones that stick out to me, deal with Michael Claber Diggs and his relationship. So he's taking larger issues and sort of telescoping them down into like scenes with his family. The one I remember the most is the one with his daughter comes out and there's a black boy in the back of the police car. He asks her what that was about, and she says, "Oh, that's so and so." And his reaction to the situation before, what she says, and then like the greater effect was just really powerful. I think that might have been the first one. He's also got other poems that hit me, but it's interesting because when I looked up poetry recommendations, which is what I want to make my video on Sunday about, there's sort of a gulf, right? Like they're either modern contemporary poets who are interpreting social issues with like how they witness them in their lives, or really old poetry that like makes me feel nostalgic for a time that never was, and is more like reading fantasy or historical fiction feeling. So it's interesting. My two poetry poles are very, very different. And spoiler, I will be reading some Lord of the Rings poetry on Sunday because that's the second one that I talked about. But yeah, if you're looking for a new release that will be like stimulating and thought-provoking and is an award-winning poet, then I would recommend this one. So there we go, my last read in March. And then finally, actually not my last read, because I have one that I forgot to put on the thumbnail because I've been reading it for like 2 years in fits and starts. It's been on my nightstand for that long, I think. And it's not really long, but it's a collection of essays. And I've definitely talked about the issues before and with other people on YouTube, but this one is an old collection. And so I was kind of going, well, no one's going to want to, it's going to be hard to find, first of all. But also, like, there are newer, hotter takes on the subject. So what can this offer on the topic, which is class? It's called Class Matters. There's an introduction by Bill Keller. I don't know who that is. But it's basically New York Times articles. Often they're about people they have done, what's the word? They've done profiles on as part of a story into class matters. Basically, things like the way you're treated in the health system changes when you're from a different class, or the laws were changed to make it more difficult for people to, get through taxes, for example, if they're less wealthy, or like how race and class overlap and have sort of linked meanings and definitely linked histories, but it's changing in the past 2 decades. As I said, this is an older book. It's from 2005. So like almost 20 years old, but it's the same. So I read, I think the other class book, Where We Stand, I think that was Audre Lorde, who's a poet. So I read her nonfiction, which is interesting and very similar sort of grappling. This was, I guess, it had a lot of different authors because it's a lot of different articles, but it's the same issue. So if you haven't thought about it before, this would be a good sampler. If you have, I'd probably read something newer, but this like came into my hands. Oh my gosh, I've had it since I worked at another read through. It's that old, and yeah, I finally finished reading it. Go me! Again, no green on the cover, even though it's about class and money. Well, that's not the same thing. In case you don't know, it's not the same thing. And class in the US and class in the UK are very different things. And let's see if I can get the definition or the clarification, the distinction clear. So in the US, class depends much more on both your income level and your wealth level, because income is how you live your life, wealth is how you learned how to live your life, I guess. Whereas in the UK, it's much more about the history of your family and how long you've been at the level you were at, rather than your income level. And that's why you get people in the early 20th century who are living in drafty castles that the roofs are falling in, but they're definitely aristocracy because of the history and the things that they're accustomed to and the connections that they have, even if they make, 50 pounds a year, for example. So I find those discussions really interesting. So that was why I did complete that book. It took a long time. Oh, yay. Okay, so I bet Anita is doing like a social media blitz for National Poetry Month. She says she's 3 poems in for writing for National Poetry Month. Maybe this is like your writing time. Yay for poetry. If you're posting them on Twitter, probably, let us know and I can direct people to your Twitter. And Shannon's making a funny face about green covers. Irish Readathon. What else were we supposed to do, right? It's always one of the prompts, so we're not going to get around it. All right. Well, that's all that I had for March. So basically, 2 more books for the Irish Readathon that I was able to read. 1 desperation romance, and then 3 audiobooks. And one was very short because it was poetry, because I was driving all over God's creation. And the history book that I read on the plane coming back. So, what's in store for April? A little addendum here is my beautiful Library Alone 1883 research book will be coming up, as well as the Patreon pick, which is Our History is the Future by Nick Estes. I talked a little bit about that to Leslie in her chat yesterday. And I think I put it in Banner. Yes. So if you're interested in that book and you want to join the book club, we don't have a date yet, but sometime this month later, we'll be talking about that book. And that was the link. And something else I was going to mention. Those are the 2 for sure reads. I may have a Filipino classic that I will be reading with Katja Weinert, maybe if I can find a copy. And otherwise, according to Melissa's spreadsheet, I have a few other things to do. So these are my goals. I've got the research book. Got that's the nonfic as well. So basically what I have left to play with is ebook and audiobook by POC author and indie pub. So I've got a short list of indie pubs that I have on ebook, and I'm excited about a couple of those. I'm thinking either J.D. Estrada's first Only Human trilogy book, or Callie Browning's book that I learned about in February. So I have both of those. Let me check them out. And then for audiobook, I think I was going with, where did I put my notebook? I have too many notebooks, and I had to move everything for the dryer to be repaired. So now I'm like, but anyway, I have a short list for those as well, but they're sort of up in the air. Yeah, that is my update for April. And yeah, we'll be talking poetry on Sunday. Let's see. So Anita says, I'm posting my poetry on my blog, but I'm also doing readings posted here on YouTube. Oh, cool. TikTok and Instagram. Oh, nice. You're doing the JD treatment with like one video for all the platforms. So smart. So smart. And shared on Twitter. Okay. All right. Well, then I'll look for it on YouTube because this is where I am all the time. Excellent. So I hope you find your brand of poetry that you can enjoy. And I hope you enjoyed something for the Irish Readathon. And if you're interested in any April reads or readathons, pop it down in the chat because I'm going to be focusing on People April, which is like memoirs, biographies, and my two for sure. So that will be me. And I hope to see you chiming in at some point with your favorite reads. So thanks everyone for watching, and hope to see you on Friday for the productivity stream so you can be part of the community. Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a good week. Bye.